Autism and ADHD are not superpowers, and we need to stop pretending they are. Because framing these disabilities as superpowers leads to people being gaslit from society and the government, blaming themselves for all the issues these conditions bring, and not getting any recognition or accommodation for it. Many people search and fight their entire lives to find out what makes them different, get recognized, get a diagnosis, only to realize it doesn't change anything about the reality of the situation. Right now, in this system, being neurodivergent is nothing but a curse. There's just something fundamentally different about you, and people call it a superpower. But superheroes are loved and respected. We are not. Everyone is a little autistic until the disability disables you. Growing up undiagnosed, ADHD was a total nightmare. There just wasn't any support for me. As a level 1 autistic, I basically was just good enough at masking and internalizing all my symptoms that I never was considered as someone who needs additional support, but just more as someone who doesn't apply himself properly. My family home was nothing but a cage of expectations, disappointment, and punishments. There was just never any other possibility for my obvious struggles other than it's just by choice, I'm just happy to be a loser and a punching bag for everyone. I remember even as a child, I would already have a host of issues like frequent body pain and non-existent short-term memory and just cognitive limitations in general that I still haven't and will never grow out of. In general, I was just always a late bloomer. I would be pretty much behind on everything development-wise, but most noteworthy is the delayed cognitive development, which for neurodivergent folks, the brain just develops slower in general. So just always lived with a constant feeling of this is too much, this is too soon, I'm not ready for this. Will I ever be ready for this? And the answer is I experience most things too soon or in a dysregulated state, being forced or forcing myself to participate with whatever society and the people around me deemed relevant and important to do at that age. I started experiencing intense anxiety every day ever since I started elementary school, triggered by the immense stress of the next confrontation, the next potential, blaming, the next wrong tone or wrong expression, either at home or at school. And honestly, I'm just gonna say this, I don't think it's only about like social norms, but most people are just traumatized and stupid, so they will pick on anyone they can to make themselves feel better. They see people who express themselves differently than the narrow norm that they are familiar with, and they see you as an enemy, as a disruptor. And as a child, I really thought it was all because of me. I really just wanted to be left in peace and to do what brought me joy. But eventually I started developing what would eventually become major depressive disorder, which has been holding me in its grips to this day, starting from about the age of 10. And because I was, in my eyes, constantly failing to participate in society like I was supposed to, and saying the right things, and to my teachers and other students, I developed a very unhealthy relationship with myself. And basically at a very young age, completely abandoned my true self and just started to view all my symptoms and issues as my personal failings. And that with enough force and practice and self-help and all this other stuff, I would maybe change. And my family and other adults, as well as the children bullying me, all said, "You're weird, you're wrong." But, little did any of us realize or care, for that matter, that I was just an autistic child. And instead of getting the help that I needed at the time, I was basically trained to abandon myself and to always judge and compare myself to others and the world as basically a totally normal but just lazy and personally irresponsible being. So I was basically always trying to hold myself up to a standard that was never ever reachable for me in the first place. And it's funny because I can distinctly remember the battle I had going on inside me, even as a child, between the side of me that saw all the injustice and gaslighting and criticism for what it was. People did not understand me. And still, through all these years of fighting and trying to just be normal, I also just could not hold down a normal job. It's the same core issue as with school as well. It's just all too much. You're expected to just have the energy and the headspace and just the health, the health to spend so much time and energy working. And sadly, even after school, it was going to be another 8 years until I would finally put all the pieces together. So basically, I needed to get a job immediately after barely making it through high school, since I wasn't going to stay with my parents. And I had some hope back then that now I had some more autonomy and I could actually, get a job. I had some amount of enjoyment or interest in whatever. But then I just realized that I won't be able to just have a job. I had autistic burnout after working a full-time job for 5 years. And that's also how I ended up eventually getting a diagnosis at 28 years old. Now I've lost even more function that I don't know I will ever get back again, after the burnout. I'm at like 50% energy and cognitive capacity from before burnout, and even before my 100% were like a normal, neurotypical person's 50% maybe. Because just that alone makes life hell for me, is that I just never actually feel good, or rarely actually feel good. I rarely have enough energy to actually feel good. I don't know where I should get the energy and just the capacity mentally and physically to work 8 hours a day, 5 days in a row. And it's not just that, the mental focus and handling pressure and responsibility with a totally shot nervous system, being forced out of your inner world all day, nearly every day, with no end in sight, just forever trying to bear the suffering of my brain and body, not being able to handle my surroundings that are ever present and will never be less hard to interact with. I don't know how I can convince myself again to deal with all of this. I basically realized that what I was doing my whole life is just getting really good at hiding, your meltdowns and basically as much of the symptoms as I could at all times. And now I just can't do it the same anymore. And it sounds like a good thing too, right? Unmasking, no longer hiding your feelings. But that's not how it is in reality. It just means I can either fully be myself, so don't push over my capacity, which means I won't have a job. I won't have a job and a normal life. People who say, oh, look, it's actually a superpower, which means you can actually work and produce just as much as we can, so don't feel sad. Just keep pushing through the discomfort and pain and the brain fog and cognitive dysfunction and underlying thoughts. Because what's the alternative? Don't make money and sleep on the street? Exactly. So shut up and go to work. That's what it feels like. That's what the surrounding energy is. They say we're all seen now. That they say we're understood now. But we aren't. People are fed up with the quirky ADHDers already. Everyone is autistic now. We're overdiagnosing people. Good God, what a tragedy that a subgroup of disabled people are finally getting some kind of recognition and access to a diagnosis and very limited treatment options. But I guess the neurotypicals just see tax money being spent on something that they don't personally relate to, so it's bad. What a waste of money, right? These people look fine. They have two working arms, right? But other than the fact that it brought me some personal closure and helped me advocate for my needs, at least in my own head, I've had absolutely zero positive impact on my life after getting diagnosed. And that leaves me today as chronically riddled with anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. It leaves me with a totally shot nervous system that is in fight or flight mode as its default setting. that needs 3 days of total rest after any social outing, brain fog, chronic fatigue, that makes it impossible to work or produce consistently. That's also a hallmark feature, super inconsistent everything. Because a lot of these things come in waves, it is always so devastating to see myself build up a certain habit or a certain range of capability only to lose it again in the next flare. And it's so exhausting to just pick up the pieces and try again and again and again each time. And when you talk to others, it's still the same performative smile where they kind of know the stuff about you now, but they will never understand fully. So you just quietly try to accommodate yourself as well as you can. But you know that if you would talk openly about your feelings to this extent, it will scare people. And also, since it's not a one time, oh, I'm sad today, but it's gonna be okay thing, this stuff is here to stay. Dysfunction and dysregulation is the baseline of being alive. It's the default state through which you experience life. And it's funny how now, on top of dealing with all of that, it is now also my responsibility alone to advocate for my needs and to figure out if there's a way I can set up my life without being stuck in chronic fatigue and overstimulation for the rest of this existence. And when this ability to be an individual, to learn and know myself, to stand up for myself, has been systematically broken down and destroyed, not only by the world around me, but also by the cruel joke itself that is this constant fight against the malfunction of this meat suit that I'm trapped in. So now the same society that has been treating you like shit this entire time tells you to advocate for your needs now, that they have been gaslighting and belittling you for all this time. So again, it becomes your own fault and responsibility. And this is what hurts me the most about all this, is that there is no closure, no happy end, no apologies, no accountability from anyone, or any recognition for all the shit that you went through. You're just left standing in the ruins of your own self. Being on the spectrum is a nightmare. So please stop the gaslighting and trying to minimize our suffering. Thank you.